27-year-old Peter Frasier from Rustenburg, South Africa, was visiting Mozambique's tourist hotspot of Ponta de Ouro. It was December 22, 2009, and Peter was on holiday with his girlfriend and her family. They all made their way to the sandy beach in the bay. As 150 other bathers and surfers enjoyed the warm waters along the coastline, Peter and his girlfriend, Nicoline Latsky, entered the water. The sea was calm. There was an energetic buzz in the air, a festive spirit amongst the holidaymakers and locals alike. A school of fish jumped out of the water near the swimmers. A group of divers below the surface spotted a shark chasing fish near the shallows. They surfaced to warn the bathers of imminent danger, but word didn't spread fast enough. At about 4:30 in the afternoon, Peter caught a wave toward the beach. As the white water rushed around him, he stood up in the shallows. Wiping the salt water from his face, he paddled through the meter-deep water, avoiding the other swimmers as he did so. Then he felt a knock on the back of his leg. He thought nothing of it. Maybe it was his girlfriend fooling around. He glanced back behind him, but couldn't see anything in the dark, murky water. Then he could feel something bash into the back of his legs once more, and then a sharp bite on his right knee. It caused him to fall onto his knees. It had taken him by surprise, taking his feet out from under him. With the water now around his chest, a shark grabbed him around his right shoulder, chomping down, clamping its jaws around his torso. The shark's dorsal fin and its back reared out of the water as it thrashed about in the shallows. Peter pushed it away with his hands, but as he did so, it rapidly closed its mouth around his hands, almost severing the tendons. The horrifying scene unfolded rapidly. Peter hardly had time to react. He hadn't noticed the shark until it had bitten his shoulder, exposing its fin and back. There was nothing he could have done except for fight back and try to get out of the water as quickly as possible. Peter scrambled to get to his feet. A man on a lilo floated right next to him. Children splashed in the shallows. Surfers caught the growing waves further out. Nicoline watched as her boyfriend ran out of the sea, blood pouring from his back, his hands, and his legs. The whole attack was over with as quickly as it had began. It took a few seconds, but the incident was far from over for Peter. When the shark let go, it vanished into the surf. Peter scampered up the beach. By now, the people in close proximity to him ran out of the water. Word spread of a shark attack and everyone crowded around Peter. An off-duty paramedic was the first to attend to Peter's wounds. She applied pressure and dressed them as best she could before helping to carry Peter to Nicoline's father's pickup truck. By now, the cuts were stinging severely. He hadn't noticed any pain during the attack, but as he watched the blood pour from his open wounds and stain the golden sand, he began to realize the extent of his injuries. He was lucky to be out of the water, but incredibly unlucky to have been bitten given the shallow water he was in at the time, as well as the huge number of other bathers in the water alongside him. Nicoline managed to find a private helicopter pilot to fly Peter to the border with South Africa. He was losing a lot of blood now, and speed was everything. He was transferred from the border to the nearest hospital, Manguzi Hospital in Kosi Bay. Once there, doctors stabilized him before transferring him to Ngwelezana Hospital in Mpengeni. They had a lengthy wait before Peter was admitted to surgery. After 4.5 hours in surgery, surgeons had closed his wounds and saved his hands. He was then transferred again, this time to the Bay Hospital in Richards Bay. He spent 4 days there and received antibiotics by drip to stave off any infection. Finally, Peter was released from hospital on December 28th. He never blamed the shark for his injuries. He never felt anger towards it. He knew he was in the shark's territory, but the cause of the attack was still unclear. Shark experts say the sharks tend to stay away from the area. There is too much noise and commotion from the people who frequent the waters. There are too many vibrations from the speedboats and jet skis. But occasionally, you get a curious shark, one that is drawn to the area and is keen to investigate. For sharks, they feel things with their mouths. They bite objects they are not familiar with in order to tell if they are edible or not. If they happen to nibble your leg, it could be the last thing you feel. It was November 2015, and 28-year-old Alan Engelman was surfing off Singer Island, Florida. He was drawn to the water, drawn to the action and the sense of adventure that surfing offered. Although there had been 30 shark attacks in Florida that year, being attacked by one was still considered unlikely. The thought of an attack often entered the surfers' minds, but it was never going to happen to them, right? Singer Island is located off Florida's east coast. It offers incredible swimming, snorkeling, and scuba diving from its pristine sandy beaches. It is a popular surf spot and is frequented by locals and tourists alike. When Alan hit the waves, he was enjoying the freedom of the surf, the thrill of catching a wave and riding it in. He paddled about 30 yards out from shore. As he did so, was suddenly jolted in the water. He was nearly knocked out of his surfboard. He felt something grab his left hand. He looked down into the water, and there, just below the surface, was a shark. He could see its huge shadow. His hand was trapped inside its mouth as it clamped down. He feared he was going to be pulled underwater. Frantically, he twisted so that he could grab the shark with his other hand. It was a spinner shark. These sharks can grow up to 10 feet in length or 3 meters and weigh up to 200 pounds or 90 kilograms. Throughout the U.S., they are only found along Florida's coastlines and within the Gulf of Mexico. Florida has ranked the #1 location for shark bites in the world. Although fatalities are thankfully rare, in 2022 there were 16 shark bites in the state of Florida alone. These accounted for almost a third of the cases reported worldwide. Still balancing on his stomach on the surfboard, Alan managed to grab the pectoral fin of the shark with his right hand. He was wrestling with it. The pain in his trapped hand didn't come right away. It was more of a crushing sensation, and Alan thought he might lose his hand. But miraculously, the shark gave up and released its grip. Not sure whether the shark would come back for more or not, Alan made a quick dash for the shore. He paddled as fast as he could. He was aware of the blood dripping from his hand. A trail of blood left in his wake as he kicked his legs powerfully and pulled his board through the water with his right hand. Any moment now, he might feel the shark grab onto him once more. He might feel the incredible impact as the shark torpedoed upwards, knocking him from his board into the ocean. But that wasn't to happen. He made it back to shore, thankful to be alive. When he ran through the shallows and onto the beach, he studied his hand. It was cut open and he was losing blood. He wrapped it up and made his way to the hospital where he was treated. 15 stitches later, Alan was released and sent home. But he wasn't finished yet. It felt like the shark had won. Alan was a keen fisherman, and he knew he could catch the very same shark. He knew he could get revenge for the attack. The next morning, he took his 5-year-old son with him back to the beach. Casting his rod out into the surf, he waited patiently. He was rewarded later that day when his line went taut. He pulled sharply on his rod and hooked a big one. He could tell from the markings on its fin that it was the same shark that had bitten him. Alan was out for payback. He wanted revenge. When he caught the shark, he killed it. He gutted it, filleted it, and smoked it. He ate his catch, satisfied that he had taken the shark that had bitten him. In Florida, it is legal to catch and kill 21 species of shark. Regarding spinners, they must be over 54 inches long if you catch and kill them. Alan can rest easy knowing that he had taken the life of the animal that attacked him. For the shark, however, the mistaken identity of its prey had sadly cost it its life. The only thing worse than being attacked by a shark is being attacked by a shark twice. This happened to Greg Pickering, a veteran freediver and spear fisherman. Since the 1970s, he has been diving in the Western Australian oceans. He has made a living from fishing for abalone and spearfishing and selling his catch. After 34 years in the business, Greg felt at one with the marine environment. He was an expert diver and fisherman. He had seen sharks numerous times before, and none had given him any cause for concern. They were often curious, but rarely showed any signs of aggression. But after 34 years in the industry, Greg's luck was about to run out. In 2004, while spearfishing 5 nautical miles off Cervantes, he was suddenly mauled by a bronze whaler shark. The attack was rapid. He hardly had time to react. The 5-foot shark came at him and his dive buddies from the depths. One of Greg's friends fired the spear gun as the shark thrashed around their legs, trying to take a bite. The release of the gun caused the shark to swivel around and focus its attention on Greg. It grabbed hold of his lower leg and clamped down. Greg could feel the pressure building and he could feel the depth of the bite. He tried to fend it off with his spear gun. It released his leg and Greg thought he got away with it, but the shark wasn't finished yet. It came back for more. It bit into his leg again, crunching down on Greg's shin bone. He could feel the crack of his leg and then the shark let go. Greg was lucky the shark didn't bite through any arteries. He was able to resurface whilst remaining conscious. Other boats in the area came to his aid and motored him to shore. From his hospital bed, Greg recounted his attack to television and news stations. Although he had been shaken by the incident, he wasn't deterred from diving and fishing. Greg's luck was to run out once more. Less than 10 years later, Greg was fishing. This time, he was employed by Western Australia's largest abalone processor, South Wild Abalone, which is situated near Esperance, Western Australia. Scouring the ocean floor for this delicacy came naturally to Greg, who had made the dives countless times before. But this time was different. He and his crew headed out 5 miles from shore. Greg dived a depth of 15 meters and began gathering the mollusks. They could fetch 100 Australian dollars per kilo if the market was right. But Greg wasn't the only thing searching for food in the water that day. There was a predator on the prowl, and this time Greg might not be so lucky. A great white shark came at him from nowhere. He didn't see the shark, but he knew instantly what it was. Experience had taught him that. He felt the ferocity of the attack, the shark teeth and powerful bite. Greg's head was in the shark's mouth. He didn't think he would survive this one. The shark thrashed its head from side to side. It released Greg's head and went for his shoulder. The attack felt like an eternity, but it was over as quickly as it had begun. Greg was left bleeding profusely. The shark had torn through his wetsuit. It had severed the skin on his face, chest, and shoulder. Somehow, Greg managed to remain calm. He managed to rise to the surface slowly, controlling his ascent in a cloud of red blood. When he surfaced, he was 20 meters from his boat. He called out to them, and they managed to haul him aboard. Another dive vessel that had witnessed the attack motored over to offer assistance. Greg's injuries were so severe that moving him to another boat would have been too dangerous. Instead, the other dive boat towed Greg and his boat whilst his crew tried to stem the bleeding and keep his calm. On shore, off-duty ambulance officer Conrad Lowe received a call about the attack. The ambulance crew were some distance away and knew that Conrad would be able to get to Greg sooner. He grabbed a first aid kit and sped off in his 4x4 pickup truck, tearing down the off-road track, bouncing over bumps and crashing through potholes. He met Greg and his crew coming the other way in their vehicle. The vehicle was towing Greg's boat and Greg was still inside. Conrad jumped to Greg's aid. Having a trained paramedic there seemed to calm Greg, and the crew felt a sense of relief. They had tried to stem Greg's bleeding as best they could. They shoved gauze into the torn wetsuit and then wrapped the wounds in duct tape. The wetsuit itself was applying pressure to the wounds as well. Greg's head and neck had been wrapped in towels. They drove the remaining 40 kilometers along the off-road track, every jolt and every bump threatening to damage Greg further until they reached the main highway. Greg was attacked at 10:30 that morning, and by 2 p.m. he had finally made it to Esperance Hospital. He was stabilized before being airlifted by the flying doctors to hospital in Perth, 700 kilometers away. He underwent extensive surgery to repair his face and torso and was discharged a week later. He was lucky to have survived such horrific injuries. A search and kill order was released for the shark following the attack, but it was called off after no further sightings were made.